introduction, firstly, in democracies, power is separated across institutions to prevent abuse. In authoritarian system, power is centralized, often leading to oppression. Secondly, democracies gain legitimacy through free and fair elections. Authoritarian regimes rely on ideology, fear, or performance to maintain control. Lastly, democratic systems are more likely to protect human rights through accountability. Authoritarian regimes often suppress right to maintain authority.
Today, I will briefly talk about how human rights are affected under two types of political system, which is democratic and authoritarian. Let's start with democratic systems. So first of all, power belongs to the citizens, and people have the right to choose their leader through regulation elections, which will be held once in 5 years. And once the votes are counted, the winning party forms the government and takes on responsibility to govern on behalf of the people. Now, let's look at the authoritarian system. It usually limits political freedom like freedom of speech and the right to protest. Power may seem legitimate on paper, but in reality, it's often used to maintain control instead of serving the people. These governments work to reinforce their authority in all areas of society, including media, education, and even law enforcement. As a result, human rights are often restricted or ignored in favor of maintaining power. So in summary, democracies value people's choice and protect their rights, while authoritarian regimes focus on control and limit public freedoms.
Moving on to our first real-life cases, South Africa's transition to democracy and human rights. The transition of South Africa from apartheid to democracy began in the early 1990s. It is to get rid of racial segregation and accepting multiracial democracy. The first democratic were held in 1994, and the leader of the African National Congress, ANC, Nelson Mandela, became the first black president. The ANC remained winning the majority vote in every selection, being the dominant political party in the country. They are not unfamiliar with the country's major challenges like unemployment, corruption, bad quality of education, and many more. The Trading Economics website stated that the number of unemployed people increased from 31.9% to 32.9% in Q1 2025, for the reason that the biggest contributor to this rate is the unemployed young people that range from the age of 15 to 24 years old, which had a rate as high as 62.4%. The factor of this issue is structural, being the inefficient transport infrastructure and poor communities who does not have the required skills for certain jobs due to lack of quality education. Next, we have the Christchurch mosque attack response by the parliament. A gunman had live streamed in social media his horrific terrorist attack in the Al-Nur Mosque in Rekatten. The incident caused 89 injured people in total, and the youngest victim being only 3 years old. The gunman was arrested while on his way to the third mosque and was sentenced to life in prison. How did the New Zealand's parliament react? They declared a gun law to control the usage of firearms in the country directly to protect and improve the safety of the citizen. The Arms Amendment Bill was first introduced 2 weeks after the attacks, aiming to stop the distribution of semi-automatic firearms and the parts that can be used to assemble into being a weapon to general population of New Zealand. The Parliament agreed to accelerate the process, and the bill only took 11 days to become a law. They also have strengthened the licensing system by creating a new system of warning flags to show if an individual is not suitable to have the firearms license.
Now, continuing from that point, I would like to focus on the case of 4.3 authoritarian suppressions against the Uyghur Muslim in Xinjiang, China. What is happening in Xinjiang? China has been systematically targeting the Uyghur Muslim through the use of advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, and facial recognitions. These tools are the part of the broader authoritarian strategy to control and monitor the populations. Hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs were detained in so-called re-education camps without any formal charge or trials. As a result, Uyghurs have suffered several human rights violations, including the loss of privacy, freedom of religion, and freedom of movement. Although the Chinese government claims to uphold equality, religious, and freedoms, is use technology to discriminate against the Uyghurs. What is more concerning is that China exports these surveillance technologies to the other countries. This global spread of authoritarian tech poses a serious threat to the human rights and democratic values worldwide. Moving on the impact of authoritarian governance on human rights in Xinjiang. Firstly, the Uyghurs have lost their right to privacy. They are constantly monitored through AI and facial recognition, even inside their homes and mosques, creating a climate of fear. Secondly, there is several religious operations. Practicing Islam openly, such as praying, fasting, or growing a beard, this can lead to the punishments, forcing many to abandon their faith. Third, ethnic discrimination is reinforced by technology. Surveillance tools are designed to detect the Uyghur features, leading to racial profiling and targeted control. Next, let's take a look at 4.4 human rights violations committed against the Rohingya under Myanmar military regimes. What happened in Myanmar? The country has been governed by authoritarian regimes that relies on violence and repressions to stay in power. In 1982, the government passed a citizenship law that stripped the Rohingya of their legal status, effectively making them stateless. This law excludes them from the list of recognized ethnic groups in Myanmar. As a result, the Rohingya were labeled as illegal immigrants. Military campaigns such as Operation Dragon King were launched to drive the Rohingya out from Myanmar. This operation forced many to flee their homes and seek refuge in countries like Bangladesh. Now, turning to the specific human rights violations faced by the Rohingya under Myanmar military regime. The Rohingya have been subjected to arbitrary detentions, killings, and sexual violence, including mass rape during the military operations. Their villages have been burned and mosques destroyed, erasing their homes and places of worship. They also face a land grabbing and forced labor, often being used for the state-run project without pay or consent. On top of that, they are denied access to basic rights such as education, healthcare, and freedom of movement, showing how deeply restricted and controlled their lives are Despite international pressure, Myanmar still refused to recognize the Rohingya as citizens.
In conclusion, political systems affect human rights based on how power and authority are used. Democracies protect human rights through fair elections and laws that allow people to voice their concerns. For example, South Africa ended racial segregation, and New Zealand acted strictly to protect citizens after a terrorist attack. Authoritarian systems, however, often suppress right to maintain control. In Myanmar, the Rohingya face violence and displacement, while in China, the Uyghurs are monitored and oppressed. These examples show how different systems impact human rights, with democracies promoting freedoms